Hello there. Welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for watching these videos wherever you are. I really appreciate you tuning in. We're going to talk about self-esteem again today. Self-esteem. It's one of those things that we take for granted until something happens where we realize, uh-oh, maybe my self-esteem isn't as high as I thought it was. Something happens in our external reality that mirrors back to us what we think about ourselves or what we feel about ourselves or what we believe about ourselves. And it's not as good as we thought it was. Maybe somebody says something to you. Someone makes a comment or insults you or criticizes you, and you get triggered or your feelings get really hurt. Not to say that that's not normal, because we're human beings and we care about what other people think. But there's a difference between caring about what other people think in terms of I want to come across well to people, and really feeling like if somebody says something negative about you or criticizes you or makes a comment about some part of you, that just wounds your soul and you just have a bad day because of a comment that somebody else makes. That's something different. That means that that's probably mirroring back to you something that you believe about yourself. You're getting triggered because of a wound, a pre-existing wound that you are already carrying in your operating system. And then when somebody makes that comment about you, it presses on that wound and it really hurts. So that's another way to think about, when we get feedback or criticism or insults or comments from other people. Another way to think about that is, what is my pain level here? Is my pain level appropriate to the comment that the person is making? Because like I said, we're all human. If somebody says something negative to us or about us, I think it's pretty normal for most of us to go, doesn't feel good. But are you able to kind of shrug that off and go about your day? Or does that just wound you and now you're just ruminating about that comment? Can't stop thinking about it. Maybe somebody makes a comment about you on social media, and now you're afraid to go on social media because you don't want to get those comments anymore. That's a sign that your self-esteem needs a little bit of work. So again, my philosophy of this whole channel is that every experience is an opportunity for us to learn something about ourselves, to practice some skill, or to heal something about ourselves. Some wound, some trauma, some experience, some memory, a belief that is sabotaging us, that is draining our energy, draining our power, stealing our attention, stealing our focus. And we need to heal that so that we take back our power from that thing so we can use that energy to do other things with. Because that's what power is all about. Power is energy that you can use to do things, make things, create things. And so if your power is being drained by these limiting beliefs around your self-esteem, and they keep getting triggered by the external world, well, you're not going to have as much energy to do all the things that you want to do with your life. That's why self-esteem is so important. And so I want you to ask yourself, what are you basing your self-esteem on? What is your self-esteem based on? Is it based on your appearance? Are you staking your self-esteem and how you feel about yourself based on how people perceive or the value that they place on you based on your appearance? And this is a hard one to kind of sit with, especially as a woman. where so much of our value is based on our appearance. There's like a hierarchy, a pecking order. Not to say that men don't experience this as well, but I think it's especially potent when it comes to women and our appearance. Are you beautiful? Are you used to being the pretty girl? And that's what you're basing your value on, your sense of self-worth is on whether or not people perceive you as beautiful or the pretty girl. Are you basing your self-esteem and your self-worth on youth? You know, as I've become older, I'm now 53 years old. Am I 53? Yes, I'm 53. I'm like, how old am I? I'll be 54 this year. Yeah, I guess so. Jeez. I know that as we age, especially as a woman, there have been periods in my life where I'm like, oh, my self-esteem is a little fragile right now, because so much of my identity as a woman was formed when I was younger, and youth and sexuality and all those things that fed into my sense of self-worth and self-esteem. And as we age and those things become less a part of how people identify us, I'm no longer the hot girl. Ooh, what does that mean? What does that mean to me and about how I view myself, my self-esteem, my self-worth, the value that I place on myself in this society? So, are you basing your self-esteem on your appearance? If you have a bad hair day or you wake up with a puffy face, is your day ruined because, oh, I don't want people to see me like this? If you get a zit on your face, is your day ruined because, can you not go outside the house without makeup on? And don't get me wrong, I got my face beat right now. But I don't look like this all the time. When I'm leaving my house, I don't usually wear makeup. But when I do something like this, a professional appearance, I consider this to be a professional appearance, I want to, put a little makeup on, look cute. Nothing wrong with that. But if you are forced to go without makeup, are you just like, I have to hide because I don't want people to see me without my makeup on? Yeah. Appearance. Is your self-esteem based on whether or not you're in a relationship? Who are you without that partner? Who are you outside of a relationship? Is your self-esteem based on your ability to attract a woman or attract a man? Is your self-esteem based on accomplishments and achievements? If you're not doing things that you can brag about on the socials, if you can't post about all the great things you're doing, do you feel less than? This is a particular one that I had to do a lot of work on. Because, let's see, about 20 years ago, when I first started my spiritual journey, I think I still am, a type A personality. I love accomplishments. I love achievements. I love challenge and setting goals and meeting goals, and that's just who I am by nature. But 20 years ago, when I started my spiritual journey, I had not one job, but two jobs. I was a professional actress in Hollywood, and I was also an assistant vice president in an insurance brokerage, because I wasn't one of those actors that just relied on, the work that I was doing as an actor. I was like, no, I need a real job, steady paycheck. And so I had two jobs. And when I started my spiritual journey, because I got in touch with my intuition and I was like, what's this world all about? I need to go explore this. I decided to quit my acting job, or, quit acting, pursuing acting. I quit my day job as the assistant vice president in this insurance brokerage, and I dedicated my time to the study of spirituality, metaphysics, energy healing, like all the things. And so my life drastically changed. I went from accomplishing and achieving and doing things and having money and all the things to all of those things were taken away. I chose to consciously remove those things from my life. And it was hard because I realized that my self-esteem was tied to all those things, the accomplishments, the achievements. Being able to tell my family and friends, hey, I'm doing this play, or I'm on this TV show, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And then when all of that is taken away, who am I without all those things? I identified with my accomplishments and achievements and all the things that I was doing. Don't get me wrong. Nothing wrong with those things. Nothing wrong with goals. Nothing wrong with accomplishing. Nothing wrong with achieving. What tends to be problematic is when you over-identify with those things. When your identity is so closely tied to and invested in those things, that when those things are taken away, or when there's some kind of a loss or an issue with those things, that your self-esteem, how you think and feel about yourself, suddenly crumbles. That's the issue. And so I had to learn how to build my self-esteem from the inside out, because I had built it from the outside in. And I think that's how we're taught, right? When you're in school, you take the tests and you score the grades and you get the gold star and you become, captain of the varsity team or whatever. School is basically performance-based, and you get rewarded and applauded based on your performance. And so it just reinforces this idea of conditional love. It reinforces this idea that I have to perform in order to receive love, acceptance, support, prosperity, all the things. And so what I had to do during my 5-year timeout, where I really was just meditating and studying and being very introspective, I had to undo all of that conditioning and that programming around tying my self-esteem to my external achievements. And I had to evaluate and assess my growth and accomplishments and achievements based on what was happening on the inside. How was I healing every single day? Could I measure the work that I was doing on myself based on my internal experience? Nothing else. Not based on what anybody was telling me, because I wasn't really doing anything. Not based on any external accomplishments. But on how do I feel on the inside? Am I communing with Source more deeply, more clearly than I was last week? Is my connection to Source and the universe deeper than it was last year? Is my trust in the universe and Source more strong than it was last month? Did I heal that memory? When I think about that memory or that experience, is it less painful than it was a week ago, a month ago, a year ago? Do I know more about myself? Have I learned more about my operating system? who I am, what I like, what my preferences are, what I really believe, and what I don't believe anymore. What are my values? What do I want in life based on who I am? That was how I had to begin to measure my sense of self and, as a result, my self-esteem. Had to completely rewire my brain, my programming around who I am and my self-esteem. And that's why authenticity and self-esteem are so closely related. Authenticity is, do you know who you are? Do you know who you are? And are you comfortable showing who you are? Self-esteem is, do you like who you are? And so what the research has shown is that authenticity, knowing yourself, leads to self-esteem. The more you know yourself fundamentally, who you are, the more you tend to like yourself, which makes sense. And that's why it's so incredibly important that we are basing our self-esteem based on our internal assessment of who we are. It's not other esteem. It's self-esteem based on me. What am I basing my self-esteem on? Not external, internal. So that's the kind of work that I want to invite you to do. Ask yourself, what am I basing my self-esteem on? What am I basing how I think and feel about myself? Is it based only on the external and on what other people think about me? Or is it based on what I think about myself? Is it based on my character? I know who I am. I know I'm the kind of person who's going to show up for people. I know I'm the kind of person who is going to be honest with people. I know I'm the kind of person who cares about people. I know I'm the kind of person who's willing to do hard work. I've got a good work ethic. I'm a good friend. I'm a good sister. I'm a good auntie. I'm a good employer. I'm a fair person. I genuinely care about people. Those are the kinds of things. Your character, your values, experiences that you've had in your life where you're like, you know what? I did that. I did that. That was really hard, but I got through it. That was really hard to deal with, but I did it in a way that I feel good about myself, the way I handled that. That builds self-esteem because it's not based on other people. It's based on you and your assessment of yourself. Or even your ability to learn from mistakes. That's really important. Let's say you did something that you're not particularly proud of. Well, if you have low self-esteem, you are going to beat yourself up about that thing. I can't believe I did that. I'm a bad person. You're going to go into a shame spiral because you already have low self-esteem. You already think that you're a piece of crap. And then you do something, you make a mistake, or you don't do as well on something as you would have hoped. And you just see that experience as, see, I knew I wasn't nothing. I knew that wasn't going to work out. It's just going to reinforce what you believe about yourself already. Whereas if you have healthy self-esteem and you do something that maybe you don't like, or you're not proud of, or you make a mistake, you may feel guilty about that, feel some remorse, feel some disappointment in yourself, maybe even be angry at yourself about it. But it's not going to be a permanent thing. It's going to be Michelle, I could have handled that better. Okay. Let's think about that. Let's debrief that. If I had that to do over again, I would do XYZ. I would handle it this way. Great. Fantastic. Forgive yourself. And then now you know that the next time that kind of situation happens, now you know how you're going to handle it. Gives you a sense of confidence. That's healthy self-esteem. Okay, I'm the kind of person that learns from my mistakes. That just adds to your sense of self-worth and knowing that you are the kind of person that is willing to do the work of cleanup work. Let me go back and let me do a do-over in my mind of that experience. Yeah, and okay. Or maybe you need to apologize to somebody. I really, I don't think I handled that very well. I'm really sorry about that. How can I do that better? How can I do that better? So, healthy self-esteem makes you more resilient, gives you the ability to have a learning mindset. So you start to convert experiences that don't work out in the way that you would like, or you don't show up in the way that you would like. Instead of it creating a shame spiral, you use it as an opportunity to learn. Learn, practice, and heal. That's what self-esteem does. But only if you do the work of basing your self-esteem on the inside, what you think, and not on the outside, based on internal rewards, internal motivations, internal drives, internal beliefs, internal experiences, rather than external. So it's not about completely replacing external stuff because, again, I'm type A. I love accomplishment. I love achievement. It's about balance. Balance. So if you sit down, here's something I want you to do. Get a sheet of paper or get your tablet out, whatever you use. And I want you to sit down and take inventory of the things you base your self-esteem on. And on one side of the page, it's internal, and one side of the page, it's external. And then you just go through. I base my self-esteem on my job. That's external. I base my self-esteem on doing a good job at my job. That's internal. I base my self-esteem on my appearance, whether or not people compliment me on how I look. External. I base my self-esteem on whether or not I feel grateful today. Internal. You see what I mean? You want to balance the two. I base my self-esteem on the ability to do hard things and show up and do the very best that I can. Internal. I base my self-esteem on how many likes I get on my videos. External. You want to balance. You want to balance because, you don't want to completely be in your own bubble. That's not realistic. It's not balanced. Where you're kind of walking around the world going, I don't care what you think. You're not open to any feedback. You're not open to any. No. That's not what I'm saying at all. No. Michelle told me to base my self-esteem on me. Don't do that. No. But what I am saying is that when you have a healthy sense of self-esteem, that you are more able to evaluate feedback that you get from other people in a way that is constructive and not destructive. You don't just wilt and crumble with every comment or criticism or negative feedback that you get from other people. You're able to go, okay, well, that was something. That was a comment. That was a choice. Or Is there some truth in that? Okay. Let me chew the meat and spit out the bones, as I say. You know what? There's a little bit of truth in that. Let me think that through and figure out how to apply that so I can do better the next time. That's healthy self-esteem. So that's the activity for today. Let me just check in and see if Source wants to say anything else about internal and external metrics. Yeah, it just comes back to balance. But it's got to come from the inside first. Again, this is in my last video, I talked about how our sense of self, when we're young, when we're babies, when we go through that period, when we're toddlers, it's based on egocentrism, where the external world is based on who you are, right? If something happens in your external world, you think you caused it. And so what we're doing is we're healing that, we're maturing that part of ourselves that maybe hasn't healed, maybe hasn't fully developed and matured out of that phase, so that we can become more open to receiving the feedback and information from our environment through a lens that is more accurate and objective, and not, oh, that person said something about me. That must mean I'm terrible. They must be right. No. That's an immature way of viewing things. I hate to say it. That's an immature way of viewing things. What is a mature way of viewing things is, okay, I'm an individual. They're an individual. They said something to me. Let me stop and check in with my intuition. Is there any truth to that? Yeah, no, I'm not feeling that. Thank you. You have a right to say that. You have a right to think that way. You have a right to, right, move through the world that way. I can go on about my day unbothered. Or that person said that. No, that's an immature response. A healthy self-esteem response is, that person said that. Wow, that stings a little bit. Okay, is there some truth in that? A little bit of truth. Okay, well, let me take that in and I will decide how I want to integrate that. I will decide how I want to use that and make any adjustments in how I operate going forward. That's a mature way of looking at things. That's mature self-esteem. So, all right, I think that's it. Do that spreadsheet, external, internal, what are you basing your self-esteem on? And yeah, we're going to keep going with this. It's about balance. It's about balance. All right. Thank you so much for listening. Until the next video, you know I love you. Take care.